Hello, my name is Lemuel Reber, and I am doing my draft presentation today on wastewater treatment. I will be acting as a environmental health specialist, but we will get to that here in a second. Um, as we talk about our concept today, before we start, just wanted to say that this is a student presentation, so please do not bring litigation against me. I am merely doing this for a class, so I hope it is beneficial and helpful to whatever extent possible. Like I said before, in the scenario that I am presenting in today, I'm an environmental health specialist for the great state of Oklahoma. If it were up to me, the state lines would not be drawn like this, but I'm sure there's some good geographical reasons for this, as well as some other historical reasons that may or may not be so good. But if it was up to me, the shape of the great state of Oklahoma would be drawn differently. And I don't have data to back up whether or not that the shape of the state affects health outcomes, but I am open to the data if it so presents itself. I am presenting today as an environmental health specialist to a group of physicians during grand rounds to see whether or to talk about the possibilities of reusing waste water, more specifically for drinking water purposes, but we will be getting into some details in the final presentation um, for some different various uses that do have an effect on human health um, for recycling, but specifically for recycling wastewater. So for the United States, this is a topic that should be extremely relevant, but thankfully um, isn't on our minds a whole lot. Thankfully, many of us have access to a great deal of clean water, but that is because there's a great deal of public tax dollars and infrastructure in place to help fill in this need that the population has for clean, consumable water. And in the U.S., in particular, there is consumed 322 billion gallons of water every day. So there is a huge demand and a huge need for clean water. But how exactly does that happen? Because at times it does seem like magic, just turning on the faucet. I'm wondering where it all comes from. So as you can see, the water treatment process is just by this kind of fancy picture here in the top right hand corner of a treatment plant. It's a pretty intricate and stepwise process. Requires time, requires pretty large facilities to get clean, consumable water. There are approximately every day 34 billion gallons that are processed. So that is it requires a lot of manpower and a lot of facilities to make that happen. And here in the U.S., there's more than 14,000 wastewater treatment plants. And I thought this was interesting that in New York City there are 14 water treatment plants specifically for um, for the wastewater that comes out of the city, um, which I believe, in terms of processing gallons, is about 1.3 billion gallons every day that are processed. And over the course of 8 years, that's enough water to fill the Red Sea. So, um, whatever that means to you, take it or leave it. It's a lot of water. That's what I take from that. So the process of water processing, or of the water treatment, is pretty pretty in depth, and there's a lot of different steps, and um, is a multi um, multi focused and stepwise process of removing large large filtrate and large debris out of the water and smaller particles, and then eventually using different methods to sanitize and disinfect the water to make sure that it is safe on a biological level to consume, and finally to be released in a consumable manner into the environment again, into clean water sources like streams and rivers and lakes and such. So it's a pretty in-depth process, and the final presentation will get into some of those details. We'll also be covering some of the alternative options that we have, and it would probably be a little more applicable on a day-to-day basis for healthcare professionals to know what exactly the options are in terms of the water filters that people can have, to what the different thoughts are and schools of thought are on what is important to be taking out of the water and what is okay to leave. We're going to be looking at the different treatment options that people have for making sure that their water is consumable, as well as maybe some alternative options for some methods that maybe aren't quite as aren't as infrastructurally intense, or requiring tons and tons of money, and being able to use more organic compounds to be able to get water to maybe a irrigatable, if not drinkable form. So we'll be looking at some of those alternative options in the final presentation as well. So here are some references, and I'm looking forward to my final presentation and sharing my findings with you all. So thank you.